Why, hello, you goddamn beautiful people. It's your boy, Sir Sick. Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and wouldn't you know it, but someone replied to one of my videos, and according to a lot of extremely pleasant people, I got absolutely cooked. Wonderful. Anyway, the response to me is a goddamn hour long, so I won't be addressing it all in one sitting, and unlike my usual interject every time they say something stupid shtick, I'm going to let him do his full refutation of each of my bits first. Otherwise, we would be here all day, even without it being a pissing hour. Have fun!
Wow, it's quiet and empty.
Oh wow, it really is very empty in here. Oh, I get it. We must be inside an apologist's brain. I can tell because the one thing that is in here is the title and thumbnail for this video. Proving Islam in 10 minutes. Classic idiot theist move. Thinking they can demonstrate their entire worldview in an incredibly short amount of time. Pro tip, if you think you can prove or disprove basically anything, let alone a complete fucking worldview in 10 minutes, you're definitely wrong and probably not very smart.
Oh, that's funny. Apparently if you think you can prove or disprove something in 10 minutes, you're an idiot. Almost as if I'm watching someone try to disprove my worldview in 20 minutes. What does that make you, an even bigger idiot?
Your very first point, seconds into your refutation, and you have completely failed to make an even remotely coherent point. And there are two distinct screw-ups you have made. One really, really big one, and one small but very, very funny one. So the big one, that should be obvious to anyone smarter than me, which, you're right, I am an idiot, just for different reasons, but even a gibbering moron would have seen this. I'm not trying to disprove your entire ideology. I'm demonstrating that the kinds of arguments that can fit into the space of 10 minutes will fail in those 10 minutes. Because they do. Obviously. The burden of proof required to point out a few arguments are bad and demonstrating the entirety of an ideology are tasks that differ by orders of magnitude. Also, if you think that because I called the video Proving Islam False, that's definitely what I was trying to do, well, someone doesn't understand irony. The person proving it false in that title was you, by again failing to do what is impossible to do in such a short amount of time. But the funniest one is the fact that if we take everything at face value, then the fact that mine is 20 minutes would mean that I'm less stupid than you. But if we do go with your misreading, the fact that you made an hour-long video refuting me, well, somehow that makes you even wronger still. Holy shit, I was pretty sure that this video wasn't going to be very good, but I didn't expect it to fall to pieces in the first few seconds. God damn it.
Wow, that's a big bang. How did I get here? Did the Big Bang create me? No, the Big Bang couldn't have created me. That's just a process we observe. Who or what made this Big Bang bang?
Who or what made the Big Bang? Well, that's assuming your conclusion that it was made by anything at all. Presuppositionalism from a subject on this channel, well, blow me down with a feather. Or better yet, blow me away with a cannon, because that sounds like a smarter thing to do. But I've made my bed, I guess I gotta shit in it.
Asking who or what caused the Big Bang isn't assuming God, it's asking for an explanation. There are only two possible explanations, a personal agent or an impersonal cause. You could say there is a third, which is just nothing. If you don't like the who, that's fine, and the nothing explains nothing, at least give me the what. Either way, you're still explaining an effect that began to exist, so you're looking for the cause of the effect. You want to know what is the actual cause, what caused it, right? So I'm saying who, because I'm appealing to that, or I can say what. You can say either one, there's no issue with it. So saying you're assuming the conclusion is just avoiding answering the question.
No. The who and the what are the presupposition of something did, hence anything at all. You appear to have missed that part, shockingly. I'm not bothered by the God bit. I'm bothered by the assumption that it was caused at all. And you try to address that badly by throwing in the third nothing bit and then saying nothing causes nothing, but there are more possibilities than just those. For one, it ignores the idea that the universe never needed to start in the first place, because as with any God am the forever guy arguments, you can just pull that a step back and posit, well, what if the universe was the forever deal? Saves you the unnecessary step. And we have proof for universes existing. Hint, you're in one, but not so much for those God deals. There are others as well, and perhaps even ones that humans can't yet or possibly ever fathom. But you know what I'm not required to do? When you present a presupposed and false dichotomy, list them all for you. All I have to do is spot the error to demonstrate that it is in fact an error, which you agreed to because you added a third option after the fact.
Who gave life to me? Was it my mum and dad? No, they just gave birth to me. They can't give life to me because if I die, they can't bring me back to life.
Well, they did and they didn't. They caused the process that made you into a thing, that is. But just because they caused it doesn't mean they understood it. I mean, if they thought you were going to happen, I'm sure they would have had second thoughts. But by the same note, just because they don't know how to make a you outside of bumping uglies doesn't make it a supernatural process. Just that right now, realiving someone isn't something humans know how to do. Basically, God of the gap shit right there.
His response completely misses the point. I'm not denying that parents are a cause, I'm denying that they're the originator. So this is not a science question, it's not a future tech question, it's not, oh, maybe later in the future they will be able to bring us back to life. No, it's a metaphysical question and he dodges it. I'm distinguishing the cause from the originator. Yes, the parents are the instrumental cause, but they're not the originators of life itself. They don't create the laws of biology, they don't author the genetic code, they have no choice in the matter there. They don't instantiate life by will or power, and they can't restore it once it departs. They are just the channels, but not the sources, not the originators. They're not the creators of life itself. Him saying, maybe we'll revive humans one day, that's completely laughable. The question isn't, did my parents biologically cause my body? The question is, who or what is the ultimate source of life, consciousness, and causal power itself? Because again, parents cannot choose when life begins at will, they can't stop death at will, they can't generate life from nothing. They are links in a chain, but they're not the chain's foundation.
It is absolutely a science question. What the f*** are you talking about? The origin of life in the universe wouldn't be a matter of metaphysics, it would be a matter of physics and chemistry and biology, the things that cover everything we understand about how life works. Honestly, this is just more presupposition. You think life is some kind of beyond the universe property, not a consequence of how the universe works. Also, the idea that bringing the dead back to life being laughable, what exactly do you mean by that? Considering the length of the video, if you had a point to make there, I would have thought you would have made it. Because if humans end up being able to recreate life, that would make life can only possibly come from God become utterly meaningless as a sentiment. Also, no one is claiming life comes from nothing. It very much stems from processes. And you could argue that God started them, but I would argue, with the universe as it is, it doesn't seem that he would have needed to.
And what about their mum and dad, and their mum and dad, and their mum and dad? And what if we go all the way back? Then who gave us life, and who started all of this? Evolution.
Again, you really want it to be a who, don't you? I'm starting to think that you might have some kind of bias going on. And your infinite regress is broken. It's not infinite parents, I'll tell you that for nothing. And sure, evolution is an important part of the process for what made you you. But we also don't in any way consider that what started things. It'd be like calling internal combustion the origin of cars. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yes, I have a worldview, of course I do, I'm presenting it, just like you have one, and yours clearly doesn't want the answer to be personal. Yes, I have a bias. Everyone has a bias. I have a bias for Islam. I'm arguing for Islam. You have a bias against Islam. You're openly resisting it. You have a bias against any theistic or any arguments for God's existence. But this doesn't refute anything whatsoever. Come with actual reasoning and argument. Who or what is explanatory. I'm not forcing it to be a who. But yes, I am appealing. That is my worldview. But I'm communicating again, either as a personal agent, an impersonal cause, it's a mechanism. The how is the mechanism. The what is the impersonal cause. The who is the personal agent. And the nothing doesn't explain anything, right? The nothing explains nothing. So the question isn't who must it be, the question is just what explains it. What are the possible scenarios? What is the cause? Let's investigate it. Mocking the framing isn't answering the problem. It's not addressing anything whatsoever. And in the real world, people do say evolution or Big Bang all the time. If you speak to your co-workers, common people, lay people, just people in the society, your parents, anyone, everyone always refers to, oh, well, I don't believe in God because the Big Bang or evolution. People say this all the time. That's why I'm mirroring what they're saying. It's extremely common for people to say this in person. That's why I'm addressing their objection that, look, these aren't actual causes, they're description of processes. Obviously, you understand this, that's fine, but I'm speaking to the day-to-day average person. In real life, people do say science explains it, the Big Bang did it, evolution did it.
What is it with theist dipshits and being psychic? My worldview wants the answer to the everything to not be a personal guy. Sorry, no. The only thing my worldview wants, I want is to believe things for good reasons, to base my understanding of reality on things that I can reasonably demonstrate or can understand the demonstrations thereof. If it turned out that the maker of the all was some dude who really liked the way that I boogie, that is not a problem, so long as it was demonstrable. That would just be how it be. And sure, okay, I do have a bias, but again, it's for things that make sense to me, not that I want God not to real. I just don't think that he does because of my bias towards reality. Also, using the oversimplified layman arguments instead of the real ones says one of two things about you. Either you didn't actually know them, which isn't great when you're presenting arguments that fly in the face of them, or you did know them and chose to argue what is essentially a straw man. Just because lots of people don't understand something doesn't make it okay to argue against their misunderstandings instead of the actual positions held by scientists. The only case where it is okay is if you're directly refuting an individual and explaining the actual positions as presented by the science, which you're obviously not doing. And again, evolution isn't the origin of life, which was my point. The word you're looking for is abiogenesis, but evolution absolutely is a cause. It's the cause of the diversity of life on this planet, and probably any others with critters on them that may or may not exist.
But evolution isn't conscious. That's also just a process. What if we go back to the first cell? Who created that, or who gave rise to the first cell? Alright, well, let's think about this. Nothing existed, and then there was something.
Yeah, no one claims that processes are conscious. I don't know why you feel the need to keep acting as if anybody thinks that.
Okay, this is the same thing. Again, day to day, if you ask a lot of people, the common people that are atheists or agnostics, why are we here? How do we get here? Most people will just say Big Bang, evolution, science. Or why do you not believe in God? And they'll say Big Bang, evolution, and science. They use those words as final answers, even though they're just descriptions of processes. So you get this, that's awesome. But a lot of people in person don't know this.
And again, that's a bad thing for you to do. Either argue against what the science actually says, or don't fucking bring it up, man. I didn't make you do that. You didn't have to do that, but you did, and me making fun of you for it is completely valid. You can be defensive about it all you want with your little "I didn't make this for Sir Sick" bit in the background there, but there you go. Also, I would argue that my point there, that evolution is not conscious, if you asked most people if it was, they would know that that's a dumb thing to say, which makes you look even worse. Good job. And stop saying who. The question you are looking for is why. Why doesn't need a who or a what, and can even be answered with, even if unsatisfactorily, but still totally illegitimate answer of no reason. And the nothing existed thing is just you not knowing what science says about the origin of the universe. No one says it's nothing. For the most part, they say we don't know. But just so we're clear, we don't know is not an invitation to stuff your God in there, okay?
Okay, it says the why can simply be an I don't know, but you're confusing the why with the cause. So there are different senses of why. There's a teleological why, what is it for, and there's an explanatory why, what explains it. You're trying to reduce my question into a purpose so you can dismiss it as, oh, I don't know. I don't know. My question is, what explains the existence of life or this chain of causes? That's not all personal meaning. No, I'm asking for a metaphysical explanation. You can say that you personally don't have a purpose for life. That's fine. But I'm asking for what is the explanation of the existence of life or the chain of causes. You're dodging. And I don't know isn't a position. You're just confessing it. Your point is there is an explanation. My point is there's an explanation, whether you personally know it or not. Ignorance doesn't make the question invalid. For example, if 1 + 1 is 2, and you don't know that it's 2, it doesn't mean that that's not true now. It just means that you don't know. And when you're saying you don't know, then how can you mock me for having an answer? That's a troll. You ask me for an explanation, I give the explanation, you say I'm biased. Then, when you have to come up with an answer, you say, well, maybe there is no answer, or I don't know. Okay, I understand you're atheistic, so you reject this, but you mocking this makes absolutely no sense then.
I have to start with, how can I mock you for having an answer when I don't know something? Because, right, your answer is obviously ridiculous. fuck me. If we knew nothing about the moon, and then you told me that it was made out of marshmallows because it's kind of white looking, I am well within my rights to tell you that that is an incredibly stupid answer, without the need to go up there and bring back rock samples. Also, you seem to be confusing basic arithmetic, a thing that humans have a very tight grasp on, with the mysteries, an important word, of the universe that we don't have all the info we need to make an even remotely close guess about a lot of them. So I would rather just admit that I don't know, which FYI absolutely is a position and an admission. It can be both. And yes, of course, I understand that there probably is an answer. That's why I say I don't know. I didn't say that there isn't an answer, you absolute clod. That is not how not knowing things works. Also, you insisting on a metaphysical explanation, I would argue we don't need one. Just because you want one doesn't make it a fact, mate.
Well, nothing can't make something. If I do 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 forever, it'll always equal 0. It can never give me 1.
I mean, sure, in pure arithmetic, that's true. But the funny thing about infinity is it always depends on how you look at it. I mean, your example is 0, but also 5, because you present 5 zeros, or, infinite numbers reaching up. Now, does that mean anything? I have no idea. But it demonstrates how this kind of thing is oversimplified nonsense. And then there's the fact that what you think of as nothing and what nothing means in science is not the same thing. It's actually kind of hard to wrap your head around nothing, which is confusing because you would think it would be pretty small, and my head is massive.
Okay, saying 0 plus 0 plus 0 forever is nothing, depends on how you understand infinity, makes absolutely no sense. It's not hard to define nothingness. Infinity doesn't even exist in the real world. So infinity is just a concept, not a physical reality. You can't have actualized infinite made of discrete physical parts. That's why David Hilbert, a German mathematician, famously said, the infinite is nowhere to be found in reality. It neither exists in nature nor provides a legitimate basis for rational thought. The role of the infinite is solely that of an idea, which is entirely true. I'll give you an explanation. If I say that you have a bag of infinite blocks and you add 2 blocks to that, or you remove 2 blocks to that, how many blocks do you actually have? You essentially can't count that because, again, the infinite can't be made of discrete physical parts. It's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a concept that we have. It's not something that you can actually actualize. Infinity works in equations, so it's not actually an explanation of physical origin. Appealing to infinity here to escape nothing is a category error. And he's trying to muddy the waters with, nothing is mysterious. It's not actually a clear concept. Nothing here, I'll clarify for you now, means no matter. When we say it, no energy, no space, no time, no quarks, no laws, no potential. It's the absence of everything, right? And we already use this with our intuition in everyday phrases, like when we say you don't get something from nothing, or nothing comes out of thin air, or that thing just can't pop out of thin air. Why do we say that? Because we know that nothingness literally can't provide anything. So the best example is just a cookie example. If I give you 0 cookies, you sit in a room with concrete walls or stone walls or whatever. If I come back 5 days later, you're not going to have 10 cookies on you. If I gave you 0 cookies, right? If nothing is happening, nothing happens. Time passing doesn't create. If something appears, there must be a cause. Everybody already knows this intuitively, right? And when you say, quantum nothing, a lot of time other people also say particles pop into existence from nothing. But that nothing is actually a quantum vacuum. It's governed by laws of physics containing energy and structure. That is still something. It's not nothing. Even Lawrence Krauss, in his book A Universe from Nothing, describes nothing as unstable and physical, right? Which means it's not nothing by definition. It's just a linguistic deviation that he has, and he uses different definitions of nothing throughout, just depending on whatever suits him. And if something can come from nothing, absurdity follows, right? So if things can come into existence with no cause, then it follows they should be able to disappear with no cause as well. So if a building vanished in front of you with no reason at all, you'd have no grounds to call it absurd. But everyone would call it absurd because causality is fundamental. So denying it destroys your intuition, it destroys rationality.
To start with, the saying 0 plus 0 plus 0 forever is nothing depends on how you understand infinity makes absolutely no sense. I cannot figure out what the hell you're even saying with that. Because you make it sound like I said 0 plus whatever is nothing, which I didn't say. Or are you saying that the thing I was saying was nothing because I kind of fucking agree? I said so in the bit. I was demonstrating that the problem with explanations of nothing often involve something, making nothingness quite unintuitive, which it is. A fact that you decided to accidentally demonstrate by using a bunch of not terribly useful definitions of nothing. You kind of proved my point entirely. Nothing is far more complicated than you present. I'm sorry, but it is. You might not like it, but again, what you want and reality are not contingent on one another. And destroying intuition destroys rationality. I would argue the absolute opposite is true. Removing the intuitive and relying on things that we can demonstrate is the height of rationality. Also, you are confusing the properties within the universe with the properties of the universe. If a built building disappeared, that would be very odd. But if the universe itself disappeared, forgetting the fact that we wouldn't be aware of it, we would just be gone. If universes do in fact pop into existence for no reason, yes, there's absolutely no reason not to believe that one day it might simply cease. If you don't like that because it makes you sad, that's irrelevant to whether or not it could.
Did we create ourselves? But that would be like a mother giving birth to herself. That doesn't make any sense. It's impossible.
Maybe, but there's no way that's not some kind of weird Pornhub category. And it's irrelevant because saying this thing am impossible because some other thing is impossible is not actually how that works. And the real problem is creating ourselves or being created by God is a false dichotomy. There are a number of plausible explanations for the existence of life on this planet, not just the two. And the ones that aren't God did it tend to have that annoying evidence shit behind them to boot.
This is not a false dichotomy, it's an exhaustive logical breakdown, and you didn't go through all the options. So this is the exact reasoning that's laid out in the Quran. Were they created by nothing? Were they the creators of themselves? Did they create the heavens and the earth? Rather, they are not certain, which is exactly what Soxxly's viewpoint is here, right? He's completely uncertain. And this is not a false dichotomy, so I'm laying out all of the explanations. The possibilities are not infinite, they're finite, and they're logically constrained, right? So there's 4 possible options. Either we're created from nothing, which I'm showing or proving or demonstrating why I believe this is completely irrational, right? It doesn't make any sense. Nothing has no properties, it has no potential for causation, it has no potential. And even Soxxly's version of nothing, that he might argue quantum nothing, it's still going to be something. Created itself, which is what my analogy expresses, right? Is something that did not exist, cannot cause itself to exist. That's a logical contradiction. That's why I'm saying, did you give birth to yourself? So this would be like me saying, can another universe cause, or can the universe cause itself, right? It doesn't make sense. So the analogy is why it's the same thing, because the universe can't give rise to an existence from an existence that doesn't even exist. That doesn't make any sense. It's a metaphysical impossibility. The third option is an eternal or infinite universe. And again, actualized infinities can't exist in reality. You also get an infinite regress problem, which explains nothing. It just makes the explanation even more difficult and actually is even more irrational. Because if the chain were infinite, nothing would ever begin to exist. And the fourth option is it's created by something else that is created. That's where you'll have Richard Dawkins or people say aliens exist or there's a multiverse theory or, there's another higher universe. But all of that still fails because then you still just ask the same question. Where did that come from? And then you don't escape infinite regress or self-creation or the created from nothing argument. You just come through the exact same arguments, right? The only option that makes sense is created by something uncreated, something not contingent, that did not begin to exist, that's not dependent on anything else, something that explains everything else. You can reject it by saying, oh, that's God, I'm rejecting it, but you can't reject the category without abandoning the reason. I'm giving you all the reason. Again, the false dichotomy would happen if I'm only providing 2 options. I'm giving you every single logical explanation. If you have more alternatives, provide me more alternatives, but these are the 5. So, created by something uncreated, created by something else that is created, it's just an eternal or infinite universe, created itself or created from nothing. And none of those make sense besides created by something uncreated.
So, of course, your rational choice is pure special pleading. Obviously, here's 4 things that can't be right because of whatever reason. And here's one thing that those reasons don't apply to because I decided. The fact of the matter is that as much as you want your answer to be the one true answer, it has no explanatory power. You can't make things with God did it. You can't make predictions with God did it. So the only proper assumption has to be probably not that. And for the rest of them and any other possible explanations for the existence of the universe, the only truly honest answer from anyone who isn't presupposing their conclusion is, I do not know, until the day we actually figure out how that happened. If we can, in fact, figure that out. Literally everything else is just a guess. Also, you appear to be repeatedly confusing the origin of life with the origins of the universe, because we could live in a God-created universe and have developed in the universe with no input from said deity, other than the rules of the universe happen to be the ones that were set in motion by that thing. The 2 ideas are simply not dependent on one another.
Was it another universe that made our universe? But wait a minute, this is just like the mom and dad thing again. Then if another universe made that universe, then how did that universe make that universe? And what if we go on forever? We go back in circles.
Do you not know the difference between a circle and a straight line? These aren't the same things, dumbass. One of them goes wee, and the other one goes woo. And if you're listening at home and not watching the video, you can figure out which is which from the shape of the letters. Yes, I did put way too much thought into that, but any amount is more than this guy. And the thing is, a circle would actually be fine. It's completely plausible that the existence of realities is some kind of cyclical deal. Does that mean I believe that? No, I have no idea, but it's not the same thing as infinite regress is my point.
Okay, when I'm saying it's going in a circle, it's just because it's something I said previously, and now I'm saying it again. So it's just in my speech. It's just kind of nitpicking, doesn't really matter. Call it a circle, call it a loop, call it whatever you want. I'm just saying we've come back to the same explanation that we started with, right? The explanation is A is explained by this thing, but this thing is explained by the same thing. So we've gone nowhere, right? We've gone back to the start. So it's just circle and speech. And then he goes, oh, well, look, the cyclical universe could explain it. Well, no, it doesn't, because the cyclical universe is still either going to be contingent or dependent or unable to explain why this cycle exists at all, right? And if the chain is infinite, circular, looping, everything is still going to be contingent on something else, which is the same argument Ibn Sina makes when he says a set of contingent things, even if infinite or cyclical, cannot explain itself. So cycle or borrowed existence is still a borrowed existence. Now he says it could be like this, it might be cyclical, again, but your possibility is not explaining. This goes to show these atheists have nothing to offer. They'll try to mock, they'll try to ridicule, but they have nothing themselves to offer. They'll go against everything you say, but then they'll say, oh, I don't actually, right? So he hasn't actually rebutted or refuted anything. He's just postponing an explanation and avoiding giving an explanation for anything. And again, you can go around a cyclical loop forever and still ask, why does this loop exist at all, or where did this loop come from? And then he says it's not infinite regress. I don't know how he got that. That doesn't change the fact that nothing in the system would be self-sufficient and nothing explains the whole. And he doesn't avoid the infinite regress. So I don't know why he's saying that. Now, it's funny because he says, you're dumb, you're wrong, it could be something else. When you ask him for an explanation, I don't know. Look, if you're going to be like this sort of arrogant, I would expect you to at least give an explanation stronger why you reject it, rather than not knowing.
You can ask why, but the universe is under no obligation to explain itself to you or be explicable at all. And again, you are missing the why of me do this. I absolutely do not have to give you an alternative explanation to know that your explanation is bad and doesn't come to the conclusion that you think it does. And is most certainly unconvincing to me. Like with this whole borrowed existence concept. While that's all very nice and poetic sounding, it's scientifically incoherent. As per the third law of thermodynamics, it appears to be that energy within the universe cannot be created or destroyed, only changed from one state to another. So if you desperately need a contingent thing, that right there, add that into if the universe itself is cyclical, it actually doesn't need an outside explanation because that would be the explanation. It is not a straight line. It is indeed a circle leading to itself. Also, again, relying on God doesn't need an explanation, it's the same as saying the universe doesn't need an explanation, so why make things more complicated than they need to be?
Something had to start everything, and it couldn't have gone on forever, otherwise nothing would have started. It must be something that was always there, that's eternal.
You know, that's not exactly a point in your favor, right? Because that same infinity rule applies to God. If he's just chilling there for literally all of infinite time, then exactly when does he decide to do a universe? By your rules, he doesn't, because there's an infinite amount of time before he decides to do it. So he never does it. Special pleading doesn't fix that shit. It's a flawless f*** up right there.
Okay, this is a category mistake. It's not a rebuttal again. I'm not saying that everything needs a cause. I'm saying everything contingent needs an explanation, right? So something that is contingent could have failed to exist. Something non-contingent unnecessary must exist and depends on nothing else. So when he says, why doesn't this apply to God too? You're literally asking, why isn't the non-contingent thing contingent? It's not a critique. You're misunderstanding. It's not contingent because it's non-contingent, right? So you can't just relabel contingent things as non-contingent or non-contingent things as contingent things. You're missing the point. And if you're saying, well, why can't the universe just be non-contingent? Because it changes, it begins, it depends, it could have been otherwise, it could have not existed, even according to you, and if you do take the claim that it's non-contingent, it would be irrational because you could then have an infinite regress. I'm positing there has to be something non-contingent. You don't even have to call it God if you want. I'm just saying an infinite set of contingent things can't exist. It's the most plausible thing for something non-contingent to have given rise to everything that is contingent. And then when you say, well, God waited forever and then created much later when he decided to, this assumes God exists inside of time. That's why in my example, I say that we're not like the iPhone. You don't make the iPhone and then become the iPhone, right? It's the idea that creator is not part of the creation. Time itself is contingent, just like space, just like material. That's why the creator of time and space, material, is spaceless, timeless, immaterial, right? Before and after a created, change is created, time is created. So when you're saying what is God doing before creation, it's like saying what's north of North Pole. You're presupposing a category that doesn't apply. So creation is not God changing his mind or deciding something after or later. And the iPhone example is good. When I say, look, I'm a creator, I don't become, and you can say iPhone, you can say piece of paper, you can say whatever. If I create something, I'm not going to become the iPhone, or I'm not going to be inside of it, right? This refutes pantheism, it refutes the Christian incarnation logic, it refutes cyclical explanations. It shows again that the creator of contingent reality must be spaceless because it created space, timeless because it created time, and immaterial because it created matter. Otherwise, it would be contingent too, but it's non-contingent.
Look, if you want to argue the whole contingent versus non-contingent thing, that's fine. But that absolutely doesn't demonstrate anything in the realms of a personal guy. And you can't then simply define your specific guy as that in order to have him be that. Because that's much like me defining myself as Sir Sick, a sexy man who everyone is subscribed to, even if that is completely true. Hint, hint. Also, again, you are confusing the properties of inside the universe with the container of the universe as we know it, which could absolutely be all those things you said. It could even have existed forever and ever, because science doesn't say that the universe started. It says that the Big Bang happened after whatever was before that. Also, I'll cop to using time that way isn't exactly right, so to speak. But even if God is timeless, that means that there's an always existed that he was doing, and a portion of that always existed, where there was no universe. So the question I was getting at was, what made him go from not doing a universe to doing a universe? Unless you're saying God is intrinsically bound to the universe, in which case he loses a significant amount of his alleged abilities. And don't get me started on the utter clusterfuck of your specific God not being within the universe. Then how the fuck do you know anything about him? Communication requires interaction. If that can't happen, then every single piece of scripture from your ideology is, as a matter of fact, not true. Finally, it's pretty funny that theists have adopted Stephen Hawking's North of the North Pole analogy when it was specifically created as a point against Mr. Godman.
The first cause that caused everything to exist, the thing that created us, an initial energy or power. Okay, well, what should we call it? How about the creator? That makes sense since it created us.
You do realize you need to prove the whole there has to be a creator thing, right? And no, nothing you have said up to this point has done so. Also, calling that hypothetical thing the creator is just you trying to take ownership of it. Even if you're right, that does not mean and will never automatically make it your thing. What if it's just some dude called Nigel? Maybe don't rename Nigel against his will, eh? Nigel doesn't like that.
Okay, now I'm not trying to convince every atheist has to be convinced, or anyone who disagrees is irrational. You know, all I'm saying is these are my arguments. You can accept it, you can reject it. This is how the philosophy works. Now, I'm not proving it to you. Perfect. I'm proving it to someone else. Awesome. And again here, creator, it's a descriptor. Okay, it's not a personal name. When you're like, oh, well, what if his name is Nigel? Who cares? Okay, the point is, you're a human. I'm going to say you're a human because it's a descriptor of what you are. I'm referring to something that's created everything, so I'm going to call it the creator because I'm referring to the thing or the being or whatever it is. I'm creating to the actual thing that's created everything, so I'm going to call it the creator because that's a descriptor of what it is. If something causes the universe or something non-contingent that brought about contingent reality to existence, you can call it an uncaused cause. You can call it a non-contingent thing. You can call it Nigel if you want to call it Nigel. I'm calling it the creator because it's just a descriptive language. That's how language works. Like, it doesn't make any sense. That would be like saying, oh, well, in science, why do we call atoms atoms? Did they consent? Is that, what if their name aren't atoms? What if their name is actually Dave? Like, why do we call gravity gravity? Maybe it prefers to be called Jabbity. Like, what are we talking about? This is just a joke.
Because, Doody McDooderton, you're doing it again. You're attempting to smuggle your thing in as your own description. And I just can't let you do that. The difference between atoms, gravity, and creator TM is that only one of those implies a personality. And that is deliberate. It also implies that anything was created at all. But that dead horse is starting to look more like jam now, so we'll leave it alone at this point. And it's funny for you to accuse me of not understanding how language works when using categories in philosophy to describe what a thing does is pretty much exactly how words work, and why I have such a problem with you attempting to do so for an idea that you repeatedly fail to demonstrate. Also, you're not trying to convince me. Well, why the hell not? Surely you should be trying to convince everyone. And if you can only convince a person who isn't psychologically primed to be on guard for bullshit, then that says a few things about your ideas and none of them make you look great. Ultimately, I think we're done here, because after 20 minutes of failed refutations, I really don't think I need to see the other 40 to know that they are not going to be any better. But even if they weren't bafflingly silly, I think the biggest problem with this whole discussion going forward is that we are more than likely just going to keep talking past each other forever. I think the universe can be explained by the things that we see within it, that can be measured and what have you. You think that it can only be explained with nonsensical bullshit. We aren't exactly on the same page. Or hell, even reading the same book, because obviously you can't fucking read. I'm kidding. And I'm genuinely sorry that I am such a dick. It's how I am. But I do want to pull you up on one thing that does come in a little bit later in your video. You say,
look at this guy, right? In his whole video, he's atheist, and the result of his atheism, total vulgarity, jokes, obscene jokes, appalling jokes, sexual jokes, whatever it is, a constant swearing, bad speech, things that I don't want to include, right? And from the Quran, it says, don't even say uff to your mother. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, use kind speech or say good things or say nothing at all. So the point is, you can see what the result of his atheism is, and you can see what the result of someone's Islam is. So I don't have to explain it to you. That is dawah in action for yourself. Inshallah, may Allah bless you all.
Which would be all well and good if it wasn't for the fact that you started by calling me an idiot, and also your audience keeps telling me that I have been cooked, when I'm pretty sure that you don't even have a stove. Which, honestly, I would not care about the insults if it wasn't for the sheer hypocrisy on display. Let alone this asshole who decided to use the incredibly recent death of my fucking cat to score points against me, which is frankly psychotic. If that is the kind of people that your worldview produces, then I think me being a bit of a dismissive asshole is a win for atheism. Bye! Hey, thanks for sticking around. I know this was a super long one and mostly about the arguments rather than the funnies, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. It was a ton of work, and since you did stick around, can I ask you to maybe stick around a bit longer? Go check out some of my other videos if you haven't seen them, especially if you're back here after a while of not seeing sick videos for a bit. Because yeah, I didn't go anywhere. YouTube has just become terrible at promoting long-time creators in the last year or so. So I have to make like Thanos and kill 50% of humanity. I mean, do it myself. Also, since I haven't done it in a video yet, I might as well shout out Pixel Chalice, my gaming channel. I started it back in January, and if you like me, retro games, long plays, streaming, and long-form video essays, it will be your one-stop shop for all of those. I stream every Sunday to capture footage and refresh myself and opinions on whatever game I'm planning on writing a video after I finish doing that. And if that sounds good, or made any sense whatsoever, come and check it out, and I'll see you on Sundays or whenever I release a new video. But, and I cannot stress this enough, if you don't think you're into that, it's cool, just hang out here, as this channel and its regular videos are not going anywhere. Also, if you want even more gaming content but less of me, Mrs. Six streams every weekday, give or take, so you can check her out too. Anyway, thanks again, and I will see you when I see you. Cheers!